Welcome to my natural makeup series. Today's video is going to be all about concealer. The right shade, the right undertone, how to buy it, how to apply it, with makeup, without makeup, and as always, in the most natural way possible so that you're really feeling like your best self. If we haven't met, I'm Karina and I focus all of my makeup tutorials on super natural or super wearable looks, just really great everyday looks. And if you're into that kind of makeup, then hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So just starting with the very basics, just in case you don't know, I didn't know this when I was first learning about makeup. What is the difference between a foundation and a concealer? The concealer just has more pigment to the product, and that's why it always comes in a smaller package because you need less of it to provide more coverage. And it's also why you only apply it in certain areas of your face because you just need a very small amount to actually provide the coverage you're looking for. When you're thinking about buying concealer for your under eyes, you would typically choose a shade that's about half a shade to a shade lighter than your skin tone. Whereas when you're buying a foundation, you want it to match exactly the skin tone that you have. And when it comes to color correcting, when you're buying a concealer for your under eye area, then you can lean more towards the pink side of things or the warmer kind of yellow golden tone side of things, depending on what color your under eyes are. So you would think about that when you're buying a concealer. Whereas when you're buying foundation, you want the undertone of the foundation to match the undertone of your skin exactly. So because I'm more warm toned, then I typically opt for foundations that are more warm toned. I wouldn't ever try to counter that. So in a nutshell, that's the difference between concealers and foundations. Now I'm going to go through the best approach when you're actually going to buy your own concealer. I think the best thing you can do when you're going out to buy your own concealer is just keep in mind that you can just have one concealer for your makeup kit for your under eye and your face. But if that's the way you want to go, then you need to make sure that the concealer you choose is pretty close to your skin tone. I wouldn't really go too much lighter to brighten up the eye area because then you can't use it to actually conceal blemishes on your face. Typically, I have two concealers, one that covers my blemishes really well so it matches exactly my skin tone, and then one that is a shade lighter for my under eye area. I personally do not like a very bright concealer that is like 2 or 3 shades lighter than my under eyes. I know that was a trend, it's kind of starting to go away, but when I'm choosing a concealer for myself, I opt for choosing one that is pretty close to my skin tone or maybe half a shade to a shade lighter. And I already briefly touched on this, but when you're thinking about the color undertone of the concealer you're choosing, try not to get too wrapped up in like finding the exact undertone for you. You can just keep it to the same undertone that you would choose for your foundation. So if you have a neutral skin tone, just get a neutral foundation and a neutral concealer. That's totally fine. If you do have really, really dark circles or anything that you really want to just completely erase, then you would need to color correct a little bit. And in thinking of color correcting, the basic rule is if you're more on the warm skin tone, kind of like yellowy skin tone like myself, those people tend to have bruise colored under eye area. So then opting for like a salmon pink undertone in the concealer is going to help counteract that. And then on the other side, if you are more of a olive skin tone or like a brown skin tone and you have kind of more of like the brown kind of green under eyes, then choosing a concealer that has more of a yellow tone is going to be better for you. At the end of the day, I have a lot of different concealers that kind of range in the undertone of it, and I can get away with all of them, so it's not really like a life or death situation. Because this video is on using concealer in the most natural way possible, then I would say just stick to a color that's closest to your skin tone, maybe half a shade lighter, and you can't really go wrong. It's really hard right now during coronavirus to buy concealers because you're not allowed to swatch the products. They will swatch the colors on a plastic palette for you, but just holding that up to your eye, it's not the same thing as blending it into your skin. I would probably ask for 3 samples in the range of what I was thinking would be the closest match to myself, and I'd bring it home and I would test them all in natural light, and you'll know as soon as you put it on if it works for your skin or not, and then you can go and buy it after. Okay, now I'm going to show you 5 or 6 concealers that I've used for a really long time and love and give you a really natural finish. They're easy to work with, they're light and creamy. As you know, if you watched my previous video all about foundations, I'll link it up here. I like to wear light coverage foundation. So I like to keep my concealers more on the light medium coverage, I guess just like a natural coverage. I know, for example, the Tarte Shape Tape is like one of the most popular concealers out there, and it is a really nice concealer, but because it's so full coverage, I really rarely reach for this one anymore unless I am doing like a fuller kind of glam look. But all of the concealers that I'll mention to you today are great for when you're either wearing a light face of makeup or for when you're not wearing makeup at all. The concealer that I've used the longest is the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. It's kind of a medium coverage concealer, but it dries down to like a satin matte, so you don't really need to set it. And it's really, really great for blemishes. I find that it covers my blemishes better than any other concealer that I've tried. And it's really nice for the under eye area as well because it blends in nicely, but then it sets itself. The Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer is probably my favorite one that I'm using right now, just because it gives the most natural finish. It's really creamy, it's super easy to blend out, it's buildable coverage, it has a doe foot applicator, which I love. The Pro Longwear Concealer, the worst thing about it is the dispenser. It's a full pump and I don't often need that much product, so I actually kind of switched to this because of the applicator itself. It's just a doe foot, so you can use as much or as little as you need, and I just love this one. One that I've been really liking lately is the MAC Studio Fix 24-Hour Concealer. It's a super weightless formula, so it just feels very light, but it still gives you that medium coverage, and it's just very blurring and it lasts all day. And it dries down to a natural matte, so I've been really liking that one as well. This Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion Concealer I picked up maybe a few weeks ago, so I haven't been using it for quite as long, but I really love it because it's so weightless. It just feels very, very light, even though it still gives you a medium to full coverage, and it's really hydrating and it's really long wearing, so I've been really liking that one. Another one that I've been using for years is the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. It's very popular, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a dupe for the NARS Creamy Radiant Concealer, and I liked that one too, but this one is just a drugstore dupe for it. Okay, so I'll show you an example of how I would use the concealer to just look as natural as possible when I'm not wearing any makeup. So I'm not going to put any foundation or tinted moisturizer on. I just want to do a little bit of concealing so that I can go to work or go to a meeting or whatever it is I need to do. So the things that are really important is to, first of all, find the concealer that matches your skin tone the closest. And second is going to be having the product blend into your skin seamlessly so that you can't tell that you just have a little bit of concealer under your eyes but none here. So first thing I would do is make sure that I had just freshly moisturized my face so that it's not dry, so that when you're applying the product it's not kind of like skipping over your skin, that it's actually going to blend in nicely, and the moisture will help with that. I'll demonstrate on this side here, and obviously you can see I do have a little bit of discoloration under my eyes. I did get my eyes filled with filler and it's made such a big difference for me. I'm so happy with the results, and I probably will do that for the rest of my life if I can afford it. But it doesn't take the color away, it just fills them. So it makes you look more refreshed and awake. And because the goal is to not look like I'm wearing makeup, I'm gonna use as minimal product as possible, which is why these doe foots are so nice. So I'm just gonna place a small amount right in the inner corner of my eye, right where the discoloration is. And I suggest blending this out with your finger right away or a brush, but don't go in with a sponge right away because it'll absorb too much of the product. So I'm just gonna use my finger and I'm gonna tap the product into my skin. I'm never gonna smudge or rub it. So that definitely took away some of that discoloration, like you can see. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more. So I just start light and then add where I need to. I always get discoloration on this corner as well. And then just look at wherever else on your face you'd need it. I would put it a little bit around my nose. I get redness there. And then a little bit on just the areas that I want to conceal. So I always like to tap that in with my finger first, but especially if I have no makeup on underneath, to get a really seamless blend, I'll go in with my damp sponge and I will blend that out even further. The sponge is what's going to take the edge away so that you really can't see where the makeup stops and your natural skin begins. So you can see on this side of my face that it looks a little bit more smooth. My blemish is pretty much covered up. My under eye looks brighter, but it doesn't really look like I'm wearing much makeup at all, which is the whole point. And then if you look at my other side, you can see there's discoloration, redness. And if you want it to be very, very seamless, then spray your face with Fix Plus and it'll just kind of melt everything together even further. Just look all like skin. So this is the side we concealed, and this is the side we did nothing on. So that's how you can do your concealer when you're not wearing any makeup underneath. The key is just to make sure your skin is hydrated so it's really easy to blend the product in, and choose a shade that really matches your skin tone and your undertone so you can just kind of use it everywhere and get out the door. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a product on my face, a Laura Mercier Tinted Moisturizer, and I'll cover my whole face with that. It's just a light coverage product. And then I'll kind of show you how I would put my concealer on with makeup on. Okay, so the tinted moisturizer is on, and the reason that I did that is because I think that the approach to concealing is a little bit different when you're just doing it on a bare face as opposed to when you're doing it when you do have a bit of makeup on underneath. The reason for that is because the product will actually blend into your skin a little bit better because you already have the foundation or tinted moisturizer or BB cream, whatever it is you're using. You have that on for the product to blend kind of into. You can kind of get away with using a little bit more concealer in my opinion. Not that you need to all the time, but you can get away with using a little bit more. And at this point, you can get away with using a shade that is a little bit lighter than the rest of your face if you do want to brighten up the under eye a little bit, but I wouldn't go with anything that's more than a shade lighter than your foundation color. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use the MAC NW20 Pro Longwear Concealer. I'll just pump a little bit onto the back of my hand, and you'll see it's a little bit lighter than the last one I used, which was the MAC Studio Fix Concealer. When you're thinking about the product placement, there's probably a million ways that you've seen makeup artists or YouTubers show you how to apply your concealer. For example, putting your concealer from the inner corner of your eye, a huge triangle down and all the way up. Because we're talking about natural concealer products and how to use concealer in the most natural way possible, then I probably would steer clear of that method. And then, for example, there's another trend, the TikTok trend, that shows you to put it just in the inner corner and then the outer corner kind of going up to the end of your eyebrow to give you the lifted appearance. But I say no matter kind of where you place it, you're going to be blending it out pretty well anyways. At the end of the day, if I dot my concealer here, here, and here and blend it out, and someone else dots it here and here and blends it out, you're gonna get a very, very similar look, and no one's gonna know where you placed the product in the first place. The key is just the amount that you use. So just start small, blend it out, and then you can always add later. So see how that concealer shade is way lighter than the one that I used when I had no makeup on my face? By the time I blend everything out, it'll still work for me. I typically don't tend to get concealers this light. I think this is a little bit too light for me. I personally tend to go pretty true to my skin tone. Just take my damp sponge and really blend that out after I've already blended it out with my finger. And you can see that this side is obviously a lot brighter than this side. So I'm really not using very much product at all. The last thing I just wanted to mention is that my discoloration, basically you can see, goes from here to here, and then see where the line is between my kind of discoloration area and my cheek. It's just right here. I always make sure that I am putting product right over that line and then just blending a little bit down into my cheek, just making sure you're really blending product over that area so that it does look all seamless. Okay, so I added a little bit of bronzer just so I didn't feel so washed out. So the first concealer I used when I had a bare face is the Studio Fix NW25, which is a little bit darker. And then the last one that I just put on, which was quite bright, was the NW20. It doesn't look that light in the tube, but it came out pretty bright. But you can tell that they both worked for my face once I blended everything in. So you don't have to be 100% perfect with your under eye concealer. If you find a shade that's within half a shade of your own skin color, then you're usually pretty fine. So you don't have to stress about it as much as you would think you would need to. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on brightening products. So if you do choose a concealer that is your skin tone or maybe half a shade lighter, you can always go in with products before or after that will actually help to brighten your under eye anyway. So I have the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector, and it's nice because it is a little bit more of that kind of salmon pink color, so it helps to counteract the blue in my under eye area. But it also is a brightening product, so it has like a bit of a luminosity to it, so that when I lay my concealer on top, it actually provides my under eye with a little bit more of like a brightening effect. They also make it in a peach shade, so if you have more of like the brown green kind of under eye circles or like a darker skin complexion, then the peach shade would work for you. Or if you put on your concealer and you feel like it didn't brighten your under eyes enough, then you can always go in with a brightening product after. For example, I have the MAC Prep and Prime Highlighting Corrector, and you can get this in a few different shades, but it just comes in like a little brush applicator, and you would just put that like maybe right in the inner corner, maybe right up here where you just wanted a little bit more brightness to lift the eye. Another product that you may have heard of, which is really popular, is the YSL Brightening Corrector Pin. So that's something that you could also lay on top of your concealer. If you did want that natural kind of brightening effect, it's nice because it's multi-dimensional. You've got a couple different products going on. So that's just another tip you can use when you're thinking about shades and color tones. I really hope that video was helpful for you. There's just so many products and product tips and trends when it comes to applying your concealer. But if you just keep it simple, get a concealer that matches your skin tone pretty closely, and start light and build from there, you really can't go wrong, and it's the most natural way that you can wear the product. If you apply your concealer like I showed you, you're just gonna feel like yourself. You'll just feel a little bit brighter and a little bit more pulled together. I really hope you like this natural makeup series. I'm having a fun time filming it, and stay tuned for my next video, which is gonna be all about bronzing and contouring. See you in my next one.